Commissioners, staff, we're gonna go ahead and call this budget meeting to order. This is a workshop style meeting that will be led by Director Olmsted and of course, Administrator Cooper. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Sure. Commissioner Baxter? Here. Commissioner Nero? Commissioner Malabar Govan? Here. Commissioner Vogt? Here. Mayor Hoskins?
Here.
Thank you guys all for being here today. To start off, I want to thank everybody here for the process. We did things a little differently this year, and I just want to say very much appreciate it. Just to kind of review what we've done so far, we had our first budget meeting where we created lists of wants and needs. We got input from department heads and the village council, and we included long-term and short-term and immediate wants and needs. From there, we went to budget meeting number 2, where we prioritized the list of wants and needs, identified wants and needs by priority, which is, you know, what we ended up with over here, high priority versus low priority, high expense versus low expense. So that brings us to budget meeting number 3. We're just gonna review quickly the characteristics of what a governmental budget looks like. Very different from what you may do at home if you do personal budgets at home. Go over some of the best practices that the finance department follows while doing the budget, some funding account basics, our purchasing policy, and then we'll get into the meat and potatoes of each of the department budgets. So what is a budget? According to the Illinois Government Finance Officers Association, it's a financial operating planning communication tool. It's the tool that we use as we go through the fiscal year to determine what we would like to buy, what we need to buy, and what we're prepared to buy, what services we're prepared to spend money on. So budgets will look forward, you know, what we need, while also looking at the past. What have we done? Where do we need to maybe spend more money or move things around, or where can we spend less? The budget is flexible. It comes with change throughout the year. You know, if there's changes in population, things that the citizen needs, and then economic issues that come up. Qualities of an effective budget. Budgets need to be realistic. You know, we shouldn't be putting anything into our budget that we can't afford, or that we, you know, don't particularly need. They should meet expectations of certain, you know, as far as expenses, and our projections for revenues need to be realistic. We can't just project that we're going to get $1 million in sales tax when we don't have $1 million worth of sales tax producing businesses in town. They need to be consistent. We shouldn't just spend to spend. They should, you know, revolve around what the village's long-term goals are and what those objectives are. So if we put a policy in place that says we want to, you know, meet certain needs, the budget should reflect that. And they should be flexible. Just because you put something in the budget doesn't mean that that's your green light to go ahead and spend that money. It's dependent on whether or not the proper amount of revenue comes in to be able to pay for that. And it should be amended throughout the year as things change. So when Tish and the finance department puts the budget together, they follow generally accepted accounting principles that are set in place for state and local governments. That are set by the Governmental Accounting Standards Boards. Okay? These standards provide financial accounting and reporting standards, and all of our budgets, all the governmental funds and the water fund are prepared under that guidance. Okay, fund accounting. Fund accounting is what's used by nonprofit organizations and governments. It's very different than what you would do at home. It records and manages resources with specific limitations, and it emphasizes accountability. When we do our accounting, you probably better off if you explain this part a little bit more.
Yeah, so each fund has, you know, its own set of assets, liabilities, revenues, expense, and then on your fund balance, you know, if there's excess every year, not excess, but, you know, a gain builds into the fund balance. So yeah, each fund is, you know, has its own purpose. General fund is our operating fund. The water fund, you know, it runs the water operations with services, you know, for the village, and revenue should cover the cost of the services, as well as the infrastructure and other costs to operate the whole, you know, the utility system for the village. And then we have all the restricted funds that are restricted by outside sources. The TIFs, the special revenues, IMRF, Social Security. So each of those, has its own fund with its own, restrictions and responsibilities, and, is all reported individually. Cash is not commingled in these funds, they have their own, bank accounts, and, we can't just, if we are short in one fund, move from one fund to the other fund to provide a resource to make a purchase or pay an obligation. So, not only is it the budget, but the audit as well. The audit is also follows all the government accounting standard boards and under the accordance of generally accepted accounting principles.
Okay, and everybody knows we have restricted funds and we have unrestricted funds. Obviously, restricted funds are for a specific purpose as opposed to our unrestricted funds. One of the benefits of fund accounting is that the financial reporting in this allows us to produce detailed reports. So if the police department, for instance, needs to know, how much they spent on a certain line item, Director Olmsted is able to pull that right from the way that we do the accounting. There's reports that can do that. They also provide a trail for the auditors. Okay. Why use fund accounting in government? That ensures transparency, ensures compliance with restrictions, and allows the village to manage resources effectively. Okay, some Q&As. The budget is legally enacted when we pass the appropriations ordinance, which we're going to be doing at the next village council meeting. What happens to unspent budgetary amounts? I like to talk about it in the terms of budget money is kind of imaginary. It doesn't carry over to the next year. It just kind of goes away, and then you start again in the next fiscal year with what you need. So unlike your home finance, where if you were to, spend less money throughout the year on clothing, for instance, you might be able to carry that over. That doesn't happen.
And it's also not a guarantee. Okay. So just because, there's a line item for $10,000 for equipment, it's not a guarantee that we can fund it, because obviously there needs to be a revenue to provide the cash basically to pay for it. So if every time we look at anything major or unexpected, we have to evaluate, do we have a revenue source for this, or is this something that we can review and study and implement for the following year's budget? Programs and everything's changing day to day, technology's changing day to day, but without planning for the purchase, everything has to be reviewed. Where's it going to come from? How are we going to pay for this?
Can item services be purchased if they're not in the budget? Probably one of the most popular things I have said in the last 9 months to anybody who asks me if they can purchase anything is, did you put it in your budget? So no, generally if you didn't put it in your budget, you have to plan for it. We do plan for contingencies. A lot of our budget lines you'll see a little bit for miscellaneous or contingencies in case something comes up. So we do try to plan for that, but a lot of the bigger purchases that come up throughout the year, that's why we do the budget, is so that we can project forward and plan for it. Purchasing policy. How do we manage purchases? So the village's purchasing policy generally allows department heads to approve purchases in their departments that are under $500. I've had some discussions about the possibility of increasing that money, that amount, just because of a lot of the things that our department heads are having to purchase come at more than $500. But that's a conversation for another day. Village administrator can, for most things, general purposes, has the authority to approve anything up to $20,000. Obviously, we know a lot of things in public works need to come in front of the village council, regardless of what that amount is. But that's how we. So when as far as staff all knows that what they have what their limit is within their department and when they have to come talk to me. So regardless of it being in the budget, it still doesn't allow the department heads to go ahead and spend it just because it was approved in the budget. Right. So that was just kind of a quick summary. I do want to thank all of the department heads and Director Olmsted for all the time and effort that they put into, the budgets this year. It's a long process. I mean, this started back in January, February, you know, as far as collecting all the information, getting it to the department heads having to do their research on what they needed, calculating what they needed, you know, comes back to Director Olmsted for review. People meet with their department heads, with their commissioners, with me, and then, you know, collectively, we get here in July where we start reviewing, so, Commissioner Maxson, do you have anything else you want to add before we actually dive into?
No, I just wanna say that I'm exceptionally impressed with both of you. Administrator Antler really, as you all know, like, did something different this year with the budgeting process. We've never done this before, and I think it's really great. I even think just having a presentation here explaining, you know, some of the basics of fund accounting and budgeting is something we haven't done before, and I think it's really important and really necessary. And I wanna thank Director Olmsted for putting in so much time and always being really willing to meet and to teach and to explain. I find that really valuable. And I have other comments later, but I'd like to get started.
Anything you want to add before we, dive in?
That's something that did kind of slip. Not at the moment, it'll come back to me hopefully.
You've all received the budget overview. Do you guys have any comments or questions on that, or do we wanna just go ahead and dive right into first?
I guess I have a comment on the
Okay.
overview. I think, you know, anyone who read it, there would be one thing that sticks out pretty prominently, and that's all the comments in there that remind us that we are not in a very strong financial position. You know, like just a couple sentences, revenues do not offset expenditures. This has been consistent for over a decade, is from that, you know, analysis. So this is something we've been dealing with for a really long time. The general fund does not have a reserve and relies on other funds for cash flow. It is evident that the tax levy cannot support the pension obligations. Any new revenue opportunity must be considered to fulfill the shortfall, as well as the lack of a reserve in the general fund. The budget falls short of minimum public safety pension contributions, and you know, there's many more examples like that. So I just wanted to point that out before we get started.
And to piggyback off what Commissioner Maxson said too, I don't want people to just hear like doom and gloom, we have no money. We're not afraid to tackle this. I'm not afraid to tackle this. Like it's what's been handed to us. It is what it is at this moment. And I know that I wanna work as hard as I can with our staff to, you know, be where we can be, you know, a little bit better next year, and then a little bit better next year, and then a little bit better the year after that. So, you know, I don't think this is anything that we should, you know, try to minimize by any means. You know, it's what we're handed at the moment, and let's move forward with what we have and do our best to come out on top, so.
And we do know that, you know, there's economic development coming. Things are just taking a little bit longer than we hoped for. So I mean that, none of that is included in any of these revenue projections. So I mean, there's, that's good news. And, something else I was gonna say, totally lost it.
Well, I was gonna say too, I mean, we just did this in March and April, and I can tell you that, you know, we've already instituted, a couple of these, you know, we've reviewed the liquor license fees, and we increased those. You know, we're looking at increases for other fees, in different departments. Tish has done a lot of the work on the places of eating tax, so, you know, we don't have projections on that yet, but we see that coming down the road. So, just immediately from 2 meetings that we had where we didn't even look at any budget numbers, we just talked about how we can, prioritize and come up with new revenue streams. We're already seeing those steps being taken. So, you know, priority is that we continue to, you know, continue to check off some of those ideas that are up there, and, you know, we'll come back to the table, we'll reprioritize, we'll see what we've completed, and then move things up to the top. And, you know, over the course of the next several years, you know, we'll be adding and we'll be taking away. But, you know, we wanna show the community that the work is being done.
And I think what I wanted to say was talking about how prior years, prior administrations, the answer was always we don't have the money. And, so now we have buildings that are decaying, fleet that's falling apart, because I don't think anybody was wanting to put the work into, okay, let's figure out how to make it work. And I think we have a really strong team now that, wants to go forward and move forward and make the improvements that we need.
Sure. Yeah, okay. We'll do the general fund revenue first.
So the revenue is, projected always very conservatively, pretty much stays in line with, either prior year end or an average of some of the prior year ends where there's a lot of variables in several years. We know that the property tax is based upon, the levy. We present a levy, then the county sets the levy, so we don't always get the full ask of what we put in for. And then again, it's not revenue until we actually receive the money. So people aren't paying their property taxes, or there's delays, or sometimes there's, refunds that, offset anything that comes in. So, we have to just do our best estimate at what we expect to see come in from, property tax. But, it has been increasing. Not always the best news for residents, one of them. Got my second installment, so never anything that I'm really thrilled to be doing, but obviously understand the importance of it. It makes up 28% of the village revenue. And not all of that revenue, as you may have read, stays in the general fund. Stays in the general fund, but doesn't stay as revenue, because I think I said maybe 70% of it or close to it is obligated to the pension funds. So of the $6 million we received, 1.8 maybe is what remains in our operating budget for purchases, salaries, all the day-to-day operations.
And I would just reiterate with property taxes, the village actually receives,
13 to 14% of the tax bill.
yeah, so when people get their tax bill, it's not anywhere near 100% going to the village. I mean, it's spread out among just a lot of different, entities, so. Okay, does anybody have any questions in regard to anything on the general fund revenue?
Sales tax, as I mentioned, it's not accounting for any of the new development that we anticipate. There's a line item in here for the cannabis local share, but I have no estimates or projections, won't even think about what we will receive from that until something's open. The income tax and use tax, that's all per capita. I've used estimates provided by IML. I used February estimates, which have since changed. A couple have gone up, a couple have gone down. But again, this is just, a projection, anticipation of what we potentially could receive. So it's good to see that this revenue has been increasing. And, it's all pretty straightforward.
I have one question, I guess.
Yep.
I know we've talked about this, and it's probably on a post-it note up there. We're revisiting like all of these. We put sort of the dates on the last time they were updated. Like, we are actively checking on all of those, and we'll be boosting them up.
We'll be discussing it at least, yeah.
Adjusting as needed.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Some of
it's,
them are pretty.
some of them are quite old, right? I know Vanessa recently put together a comparison of, other communities, what they're charging for things like business licenses and other fees. This makes up 6% of our general fund, operations. But right, some of these, we've talked about this, 1990 is the last time anything, had been increased. It's awfully, we don't want to, not be business friendly at the same time also. So, it's a lot to consider there.
My goal is in the next 3 years to have all of these amended to whatever they may be, and then get on a cycle of, determining is this a fee that we should look at every year? Is this a fee that we should look at every 3 to 5 years? So that, again, we don't get into this cycle where, we're looking at fees that were set in 1990 or 1996, so.
Right.
put this budget together, in collaboration with the mayor. Computer maintenance contracts, you'll see, you know, we've had an increase in a lot of our computer contracts, computer maintenance contracts. So that has gone up,
And so much of it now is cloud-based, right? So it's, you know, we're paying more for the actual annual maintenance fee and subscription, but we're not paying for servers. So it's somewhat of a balance, and getting the updates automatically as opposed to waiting several years to update your software system.
So pretty much, this is status quo. I did try to balance it out a little bit more, you know, in some of the smaller line items, you know, I actually went through and I calculated, okay, so for, you know, village council needs, you know, taking 5 members of the council times whatever it is that they need and actually putting that number in there so that we knew how much, you know, would be spent. So, it's pretty close to what we did last year. Nothing really hugely significant as far as expenditures. Does anybody have any questions?
I have one. And it might be a little bit bigger umbrella, but like some of the computing or website maintenance and stuff like that might fall under it, but have we looked into something like Granicus? I know we used to have them, but you know, they provide sort of a bigger service, so like website maintenance, online, fillable forms, you know, there's like a consistency across like all of our,
This was our,
they manage our agendas.
agenda package, yeah.
So they have sort of you can sort of make like an à la carte plan,
Oh, okay.
and I use them as an example, maybe there's a different, you know,
I thought you were
company.
saying that we had them.
We have them for that,
Yeah.
and I'm curious if piecemeal what we're spending, if there's like a package with a company like them that we might see some savings.
I haven't because I don't know what I mean, I haven't looked at it since we got rid of it, you know, several years ago for the packets. The packets right now, we just do within Adobe, which is something that we would have anyways. And so
Right.
there's
Which-
that
Yeah,
cost.
the
That
only
would be
we're
like a
paying for is
staff
the
time,
Zoom,
though.
right?
Just staff time, like when we had Granicus, it was searchable, like people could go into old agendas and look it up by a word so that they didn't have to try to guess what year
Right,
and date, like something was talked about. So that's like a more user-friendly thing, and then obviously not staff time uploading and doing all that sort of thing. So I was just kind of curious what they would offer in a package like that, and if we would see savings, you know, financially in staff time.
I don't know, I don't know.
I mean, I get calls for agenda management sales all the time.
I think we did eliminate it due to cost
Because of the
primarily.
cost, yeah.
Yes, Granicus was 10 or 15 grand a year.
Possibly.
So, and right now,
we spend 10 for somebody to manage our website,
We
right?
still have to do that though.
yeah, we would
have to
still have,
manage our website.
yeah.
Well, they do most of it. Like, I'm just curious, like, what exactly all of these à la carte services are providing us, and if there is savings by doing it through a company. That's just.
Yeah, so right now, when you talk about managing our website, like, we have back-end access, so pretty much everything that goes on the website, we're doing in-house. The service that we're paying for the website is to host the website, and then for them to, you know, have the licenses to do all like the templates and
graphics
all
and
that,
stuff.
and the graphics and all of that.
So the
if there were
10,000
major
is-
changes.
It says content page, interactive forms, and e-newsletter.
So that was when we were using, I mean, we pay that takes into account the monthly, like, fee that we pay them for hosting, you know, having that on there, let me pull up.
I want to say that the only thing that I can think of that we pay on that line item is, the,
Sabertooth?
Sabertooth, thank you.
we don't have to answer it today, but I just was
Yeah.
like, just
We're
seeing
not-
all these little
Yeah.
30 here, 10 there,
Right.
and I was.
And again, that's not, I mean, we've not come anywhere close to, I think that, at least according to current records, the most we spent was in 2021, at, 5,100 basically, so it's stayed well below.
And I'm just looking at this, so we increased this when, former village administrator Amade was considering, redoing our website.
Doing a quick
Yeah,
overhaul
so
of it.
we had put that in there, and then we never undertook that, so. Other questions?
Yeah, I I wanna clear up the lobbyists. Is that for a lobbyist or is that for something else? So it lists GPG, but we don't know what they're doing.
So that line can be for any lobbyist that we use. On the justification sheet, when I did it, we were using GPG, so that's, I mean, it's not necessarily limited to only paying GPG. If the council decides in the future they wanna hire somebody else, then that line would be used to pay whoever we have on contract for our lobbyist / government services contractor.
So we'll be contracting a lobbyist going forward.
If the council so desires. I went off of what we were doing in the past and with the assumption that we're still gonna continue with that. If the council decides that we don't, then we just won't use that line item for anything.
I was just confused because we were told they aren't a lobbyist and they're listed under lobbying activities, so I just wanted to clarify that.
Maybe add the word consultant next to lobbyist.
Anything else in regards to the public affairs fund?
Yeah, I have one other question. Other events, I think it's like 19,000. I'm curious, because it's not just village, related events, it's like a private group. For the Shakespeare in the Park is listed at like $10,000.
We're sponsored for them.
Is that, how are we funding that?
General fund.
General fund?
We also, if you remember, we did the vehicle sticker, donations. When people could donate to specifically the Forest Park Theater for Shakespeare in the Park. And so monies collected during the vehicle sticker donation collection is going to be less, it'll be $10,000 less what the donations came in at. So that was intended to help fund that $10,000. So they're not getting $10,000 in addition to the money collected. Money collected was meant to help
Offset that.
offset that $10,000.
Which I think was around, it'll be on the next agenda for bills by resolution, but was it over 5,000, I think?
Talks that we've had with the theater, indicate that this would be the last year that the village would support with that amount of money.
I was gonna say going forward, if we're doing like private groups, maybe we're creating like an arts endowment program so that folks could have an opportunity to apply. But
And then as far as Pride Fest and Juneteenth, those costs are listed, but, there have been donations that have come in, so, which is reported against the, expense. So it will reduce that expense in the long run.
Yeah, I also, support the idea of, supporting local nonprofits, that we have in Forest Park. Like the Village Theater, but giving other nonprofits a chance to receive well in the future. 'Cause
Oh, yeah.
I think we have done a great job of, sponsoring local theater, et cetera, but definitely wanna use the village as a springboard for supporting other nonprofits locally if we can do that.
Put that in there for.
Yeah, because I think, you know,
And
it's
like,
nice to be able to do that.
yeah, so, I mean, that's partly why there's that other events line,
Yeah,
was in the event that we had other opportunities to help sponsor, other events outside of, I just listed that I knew that we had, committed to Pride Fest this much money, or, upon approval, and that we were gonna commit this much money to Juneteenth upon
Sure.
approval. So, there is that other events in there, and we can definitely, make it so that, one of the nice things about this is that I know, we start our fiscal year on May 1st, and so
Yep.
Pride Fest and Juneteenth both happen in June. And so that tells staff exactly how much, we're allocating for that, and we're not trying to guess. I mean, I was very, we were talking about one of these events in planning, and, they're trying to get more money out of the village, and I was, Commissioner Maxon was there, and I was very much like, nope, this is what we dedicated, this is all we're doing, we need more money, and I'm like, go find it somewhere else.
Yeah.
And we obviously helped with that too, and it ended up being great, but because we start our fiscal year before we technically, go through this budget, that helps to identify what we're going to be supporting, so.
and leveraging, things like the vehicle sticker to do that is
Yes.
great, yeah. So, great.
Any other questions on the public affairs budget? Okay, move on to the police department.
Nothing really new in the budget this year, majority of it is personnel. And how many people are you down currently?
Right now, I'm down to 3. I have, retirement likely upcoming. That wasn't sure was gonna happen, so I'll be down to 4. 3 are supposed to go to the academy in August, which actually would bring me full staff if that one officer doesn't retire.
Okay.
So, it should be in good shape going into the next fiscal year.
And this, does reflect fully staffed, for the entire year. Doesn't take into account, that you're down a couple now, potential retirements, throughout the department. The only thing new in this line, or this department this year is, we did reallocate ammunition costs that were being paid from the federal seizure fund back to the general fund.
Any questions? On to the next one, community center. One of the things that we did with the community center budget this year was, adjusted some of the budget numbers to reflect the actual expenses that were occurring. Instead of carrying over the budget number from last year, we took a look at past budgets to see what the actual end balance was. And then this year adjusted those numbers to reflect, what was needed within a couple of those lines, so.
That was for expenses?
Correct.
Yeah. Karen, you're fully staffed? Okay.
Any questions?
I just have one out of curiosity. Remind me, the senior trips, folks buy like their tickets for them,
Yeah.
right? Okay, I thought so. I just wanted to. Thanks.
And that doesn't offset the expense, it's reported as a revenue. So it's not reflecting in this line item, it's reflecting in the revenue.
Alright,
And a lot of that, I just wanna say quickly, because they paid deposits so far in advance as well. So, if.
Yeah, a lot of money
if-
goes out today,
Right.
like today for 6
For
months from
future,
now.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So the
I
revenue
thought that
might
was
not
the case. I
show
just
on
remember.
paper that it offsets, although I haven't looked at that comparison for a while, but that's, you know,
Yeah.
if so, that's most likely the reason why, because there's deposits paid for future.
Next fund, clerk.
Well, we're finally fully staffed. It's been about 2 years.
At least, yeah. Feels like forever. Yeah, and most of the, increases in here, you know, are based upon, projections for insurance premiums, anticipation for payments to the pension funds.
One of the things we are doing is, the credit card terminals. Clerk Moretz, and Danielle and I have been meeting to, we're gonna probably go out for RFP, to see what we can get for the credit card machines as far as if we can, you know, find some place that'll charge us less
Right, find some savings.
and try to decrease what the village spends. And what we essentially.
Increase our service.
Correct,
Right.
you know, to, we pass along those charges to the community, to the residents who come in and use their credit cards, so it's a direct pass off, so we're gonna start looking to see if we can get a decrease in that percentage and fees.
So, one of the questions that I have and, you know, so I'm sort of absorbing all of this, and my brain is going back and forth, but, one of the challenges or things that, and coming into this relatively new into the budget process, but we, wanted to, and it was impressed upon me, that in order to retain, our, the expert staff and the first responders, our village staff, that we have, that, when we look at our, budgets across the entities that we work with, we wanted to make sure that our, wages weren't being compressed. So that we can, make sure that as we retain our staff and our first responders and our folks across entities grow and we can keep them. Have we, as we've looked at that, have we, made sure that we're doing that across our
So,
entities?
So that big conversation will come up when we discuss the salary ordinance, because
Right.
that's where the biggest wage
Okay.
compression is between the union, high top levels of the union versus the low levels of the salary ordinance
Okay.
employees, so we'll be having that discussion, in the coming weeks.
Okay, but, you know, I know that we have some,
And within the collective bargaining units,
Okay.
so those conversations would take place at negotiations.
so for, okay,
Yes.
so that's not included in these budgets, but that's included in some of the other, okay.
So like they just did that with the ASME,
Right.
last year when we did the,
Extension of
the
the
extension
contract,
of the
right.
contract, and we did those wage adjustments.
Right.
And then, it's, with the FOP, it's really not an issue within the FOP.
Okay.
It becomes an issue when people get promotions and they come out of the FOP, and
Okay.
so,
Alright.
or same thing with fire. So that's when we'll be talking about it, when we do the annual salary
Okay.
ordinance.
So I just wanted to make sure, as I'm seeing some of the budgets here, that we were making sure that, you know, okay,
Yeah.
that we're taking care of our people. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions on the clerk's office? I'm just gonna go, general fund grants is just lists the, proposed budget for projections of
Applications that are out
applications
there.
that are out there,
or,
yes.
Right, especially including the, capital projects list. I've included this a couple years now, for the state capital projects. So, just a number until we see, actual money come in or actually, award of funds. So, we basically know that, we know what our, ARPA funds will be, because that's been, set by resolution, what we intend to do, with that opportunity. A lot of these are just, repeat grants from year to year. The Bulletproof Vest, tobacco enforcement, IDOT traffic and safety, all of these have revenue offset. Most of them cover 100%. I think the tobacco grant does not, but there's benefits, right, to that program.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Make sure that, people aren't selling tobacco to
Minors.
minors.
Any questions?
And when I do the appropriation for the grants, this is one that I, because grant opportunities come up through the year, we don't know everything by May 1. So this is one of the, line items that I increase significantly, just to make sure that, we wanna take an opportunity that presents itself.
Okay, fire department. Any questions?
Just one.
Sure.
The training costs went way up, that's because we expanded
I'm sorry, what cost?
training.
Training cost?
Cause we
So,
added the ambulance or,
no, the training cost went up a bunch because we added in for a, potential training prop with some of the money that we got back from the settlement with Metro.
gotcha.
I asked for some of that money to be allocated to the fire department for training, and that's where I put it as far as.
I found it too, I found
Oh,
it.
you did?
Yeah. It's like, I'm like, how do I record this, how do I record this? This is Phil's last budget meeting, just wanna acknowledge that.
Oh, should've brought a cake. You could've brought the cake, Phil, you always bring the best cakes. Yeah.
I was just,
Sorry.
yeah, thanks.
And sorry, you're not fully staffed yet, so this is accounting for what the full staff will be for the firefighters. And
We're staffed
you're
according to
staffed-
contract,
Right, yes,
but we still have two
Right.
steps to go to get to
Right.
it.
this reflects what the full higher rate will be, okay? And that would also cover in case there is an additional retirement that we didn't plan on.
So when are we supposed to hire more? May?
Before May 1st of 25 and before May 1st of 26.
One and one?
One each year. And then
Do we just have one more then?
I'm sorry,
Do we have just one more?
one before 25, one May 1st
Oh,
of
yeah, sorry.
25, and then of 26.
Okay.
You're ahead of yourself.
I know, I never know what year I'm in. Okay.
Any other questions? Go on to, public health and safety. Okay, so you will see, a significant increase in the proposed 2025 budget. We did include, monies in here for a comprehensive plan if the council so chooses to move forward with that. And we estimated that to be about $100,000, so that will, accounts for some of the increase there. As far as the zoning code updates as well, we've done, so they broke up our village code into 3 batches. We are coming to the completion of batch 1. We still have 2 batches left to do, and so those costs have been incorporated into the, public health and safety budget as well.
We're also adding a 0.5.
Yeah.
Right.
That's gonna be a 0.5 admin that, we're gonna share with Sal, so.
And that's budgeted, it is budgeted.
But she'll be in our office, but she's gonna be able to help you with, it's Michelle Roque. Do you remember Michelle?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's a former employee here, but left a while ago to raise her kids, or I think they're in high school now, so she was a little side hustle to be in mommy. I think she's coming back beginning of the month.
Well, I mean, it's the only, you know, you advocated for her, and I think she said she was available August 5th or 6th or something.
Yeah, we don't have to train her.
I
That's the
mean,
real.
you know, just on your systems that she doesn't know, but yeah.
So that'll help us a lot in the building department with getting stuff caught up. You know, we saw some changes in the fees down there, and so it'll offer Steve, Sandy, and Scott some good hands-on. We're gonna work on getting that department caught up, and then we'll also be able to, bring some stuff in from sales department to get some stuff off his plate as well. Any questions?
Yeah, I'm curious, were you able to get the number that we spent so far on the zoning code update?
Yes, it's about 54,000.
Yeah, we're 14,000 over, but I think we're 44 under what we appropriated for the year.
For that, the comprehensive plan.
We figured so that's a net 30. I think we just assumed, well, we're finding it, we're kind of feeling our way through these batches. I think the next round of, and we were paying for double consultants, because Courtney was with another employee, so
Okay.
she's since left. So I think we kind of got our act together. Batches 2, 3, I think there's 6 batches, right?
Yes, but
We'll probably get through
we did batch
one or
one and
two
two.
more next year.
Yes, we did batch 1 and batch 2,
Yeah.
and then we're gonna do 3 and 4.
Yeah, I guess I'm curious, cause last year when we approved 40, like, we never talked about sort of the scope of work, or, like, I assumed it would be more of a project-based payment agreement, whether it was an RFP or we make a special contract with Muse, but, I don't recall when we were talking about it saying this is the first in, 3 installments or whatever, so moving forward, when we approach especially like the comp plan and even these other 2 sections that we need now, I'm wondering if we can't make sure it's more of a project contract rather than just sort of this piecemeal.
There'll be a contract for the comp plan.
But yeah, the comp plan would definitely be, a separate project.
And we'll
that
go
we'll
out to
have.
bid for those?
Steve and I haven't even talked about that yet, but we can definitely take that under consideration. As far as the zoning code update, like I said, this was a project that I inherited. I did go back into the contract with Muse that was, put into place in 2018, and the zoning code amendments were part of that contract, so, that project started before I became village administrator, so, in all fairness, I wasn't, aware of any contingencies put on it, like, once we got to 40,000, that, we needed to come back, we were trying to get through the batches that we had in play, so, but certainly going forward, we can make sure that there are updates
Yeah,
as we go.
some sort of contract not to exceed clause, something, just to try to rein in and keep, runaway costs.
So as a counselor, are we looking to do a contract to continue doing the next batches particularly?
I would like to hear what Director Wilkie says.
I don't necessarily see the utility in it. I mean, Courtney's and Muse has always been a straight player. They're a longtime consultant. But I'll do what you wanna do. I mean, it's hard to tell. I mean, we had to take batch 1 and 2 through 3 public hearings. We had 0 public input, and it passed the board 6-0. So I think it shows that the work product is worth the money we're paying for it.
So-
Muse, I don't really see them complaining about the bid itself, themselves. In the few know she understands how to do things. So if you're comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, she understands the challenge, it's not an easy town for a planner to, planners are checkbox people. This town is anything but a
But
checkbox.
Did you say at one point that she had so much business that, I mean, is she happy?
She's growing her brand, yeah, actually, she won, comp plan of the year from, Illinois ATA, so. That's a big feather in her cap.
So if we need to look at a rule or something.
Yeah, I mean, it's standard for a comp plan to have a separate contract.
Yeah, that's 100%, we will do a separate contract for the comp plan that'll come in front of the board. As far as the next batches of the zoning code updates, I just would need some direction as to whether you're comfortable with the contract as is, that included the zoning amendments, or if you wanna just treat it as a separate project and, you know, have a separate contract with that. It's currently in the contract that we have with Muse at the moment.
I'm fine with it.
The contract currently says that they may make recommendations to change it, it doesn't say that they will redo our zoning code. I just wanna make sure that, you know, there's some sort of stopgaps in place, so that, you know, we're 14,000 over here, we're 30,000 over on the online thing, so it's like, I'm open to suggestions, please tell me how, like, we can keep it sort of in check.
I mean,
Why don't you
I
wait
can
till Commissioner
give-
Darrow has a chance to weigh in on this? I'll just-
Are you comfortable with having me talking to Commissioner Nero as to how he feels about it? And, I mean, I'm certainly able to, you know, give updates as far as, you know, where we are and what we spent on things. You know, we were able to come up with a number today, you know, as to what we've spent so far. You know, if that's the kind of detail that the council wants, I'm happy to do that, you know, going forward as well. But we'll also allow, Commissioner Nero to chime in on that, and then I'll report back to the council. Any other questions on public health and safety? Okay, we'll move on to, streets and public improvements. Any comments or questions?
Just wanna, make sure there's, I'm sorry, I can't see that line item for the space for, the signage that we talked about.
So that's under warning lights and signs.
Oh, warning light, sorry, there it is, thanks. No, we're good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice and easy. We'll move on to public property. Yeah, were there any significant changes in
Public property,
public property here?
besides the trucks and,
The trailer.
Trailer.
Yeah, the purchase of the trailer,
green trailer.
LED, loan will be paid off, which is great.
And I don't know if it falls under streets, but, Administrator Elmer, I, and, the consultant that did the lights at Village Hall, and I think the community center, they're gonna be helping us get more grants from PEMA to try to get some free EV stations around town.
Any questions? Move on to waterfront.
fund, you know, we use the pass-through rates from the city of Chicago, which will be which has been a 3.37% increase effective June. Consumption went up. Residential consumption stayed the same compared to last year, but the commercial and industrial, I think institutional consumption did increase also. So, you know, increase in revenue, but expense didn't hit quite where we anticipated, but we just always go a little above what's anticipated, just to cover that line item. And as well, you know, we had paid Brookfield North Riverside for emergency use of water this year. I did increase that line item from what Sal had proposed for the water main repairs, just due to what happened on Hannah. We added, you know, I did add a placeholder for the water meter, a village-wide water meter replacement. A placeholder for the water reservoir.
Feasibility study.
Yeah, and feasibility study, correct. There is the expense for the lead service replacement. No recognition in here of a loan, be it forgivable or a loan where we are doing principal and interest payments, because we don't really know the status of that yet.
Any other questions on the water fund?
I know, Sally, you went to a meeting where you know that the cost of water might be different.
Starting in 2025, depending if they're ready or not, the city of Chicago is gonna implement a new way that they're gonna increase water rates throughout the customers. It's not gonna be a flat fee for all communities, it's gonna be based on, consumption and the overhead for them to produce the water to ship it to us.
Okay, so, but do we think it's gonna impact fiscal year 2025?
No.
Okay, so it will be after.
If they're ready for it.
Alright, so, okay.
And will you also just quickly touch base on what you had talked about for maybe some future planning for
So,
joining Brookfield North Riverside?
about, I would say 7 years ago, if not a little bit more, Brookfield North Riverside Water Commission approached the village and Westchester Property Water Commission and a few other communities about going in on a water main from Chicago on the south side of town. At the time, that administration turned it down, and Brookfield North Riverside went ahead and did it with Westchester Broadview. And they ran it from Fillmore Street from Austin Avenue all the way to the city here. And then they reconnected to our current piping that was going to the Hannah Reservoir, because we used to sell the water. Since then, we kept the pipe in place for emergency connections like we had to use the other time. They're still open to going partnership with us at the same amount of money, which I thought was $5 million buy-in. But then we would have part ownership of the line on Fillmore, which is a brand new 36-inch water main. And then we can always still keep the 24-inch on Jackson until it really goes. And then we can always shut that off and then go with the 36 alone. But that is ductile iron and that'll last 100 years, if not more. So that's always something to keep in mind if in the future, if we ever want to go into partners with them. And then,
Give us better buying
it'll
power.
give us, according to Chicago, if we're buying in bulk with them, the rates will actually go down from Chicago.
Yeah, that's,
So that's something we'll continue to look at, as a possibility in the future. Bring more information to council as we go. Any other questions on the water fund?
And I do just wanna mention, I know I mentioned to a few people already, you know, when you're looking at the fund balance in the water fund, it's not all cash. It is assets and infrastructure and equipment, so that, however many million that it shows, the cash balance is, it is healthy. You know, and you talked about doing some of these programs, possibly even the meter replacement, without, doing any financing, depending upon, you know, what the proposals turn out to be. So, it does have a healthy cash balance, but we also know we have some huge obstacles ahead of us.
Okay, I know we didn't print out the remaining, funds that are here. I mean, pretty much the TIF funds, you know, if any money is being, Brown Street TIF, obviously, we do have some money left in there because we do have some obligations, although that is a TIF fund that closed in, November of 2023. Roosevelt Hannah, that's one that's expiring.
That will expire in
2025.
December 2025, and we'll start some conversations about, what we, what the council would like, direction to provide if we, let it terminate, if we, renew it. Or, do what we did similar to Circle Hannah and, reconfigure it, so we have some options for that.
Circle Harlem is the TIF that we just opened, that's replacing the Brown Street Station TIF. You know, in talking with potential, interested parties that have come to Forest Park, you know, it's been a huge thing for Director Blinky and I to, you know, have as an option, for people who are interested in that area. So, I again want to thank Director Olmsted for the work that she put into, shutting down Brown Street Station TIF and creating this Harlem Circle TIF, because I do foresee in the coming future that being something that we are going to be able to use to bring economic development, opportunities to Forest Park. Roosevelt Road TIF, same thing, I think right now we're kind of using it for, just, what do I wanna say, infrastructure, you know, along Roosevelt Road.
And, you know, I know this has been questioned before, and I'm just gonna, say it right now, we don't currently have any contract with developers. Part of the reason that, it's included in the budget, again, is if an opportunity presents itself, and also because, each year we have to share, the activity with the Joint Review Board, so we have a annual meeting with the other taxing districts, and let them know, here's what's been spent, here's what we intend to spend, so, you know, having it budgeted allows for that to be included in the report that has to be sent to the state and to the county as far as what intended plans, we have for the revenue that we receive.
We are also going to be looking for, a new TIF consultant. Right now, Tish and I have kind of been doing any work that is, necessary in regards to the TIF. There's a seminar that's happening at IML that we will both be attending as well. And, you know, just wanna reassure the council that if anything comes up that is beyond the scope of what Tish and I are very little capable or comfortable with, you know, we will be engaging the use of the TIF consultant, so, we're not gonna take on anything that's over our heads. And then I guess I'll just ask if anybody has any other questions in regards to, the remaining funds that are listed on our table of contents. All of those are restricted funds in that, you know, there's only certain items that can be created as expenditures out of those funds, so.
VIP is primarily budgeted off of, the infrastructure plan that the council, you know, has reviewed, as presented by Brick Engineering. Several outstanding projects in that, have been carried over 4 years. Yeah, that's primarily how that budget is developed on, you know, what the council's already mostly approved that they want to see happen within the scope of the current year. And then always contingency again for, opportunities or unexpected expenses in there as well.
Any other questions?
I'm gonna ask Tish, I don't wanna put you on the spot, I'm sorry. If you could just talk a little bit about the public safety pension contribution shortfalls. And, you know, I know we all know what that means, but if you could just, in case people don't know,
Yeah.
what does that mean, why is it significant?
So, you know, each year we have to do, an actuary evaluation. You know, the village hires an actuary, independent, does a report on the, funding of the pension funds, you know, with the assets, with the liabilities, and, you know, member contributions and village contributions.
And based upon that, we are supposed to use that information for the levy. It's a mandate that by 2040, the pension funds are supposed to be 90% funded. I haven't seen, we're in the audit process now, so we'll be getting, having a new report prepared. We do each year, and then the pension funds also have reports prepared. We're maybe in the 30% range, 30 to 35% range.
Was what I think saw on my
Yeah.
tax bill the other day.
For both funds, so that's not good. Moody's, when we were having, credit rating review, that's something that they were looking at. We didn't have a general fund reserve. We're not, able to fulfill the pension obligations. So when we were getting the rate review, we were downgraded each year primarily, based upon those two factors. At some point, the funds could come to the village or through the state and start deferring the revenue from the state income tax or state sales tax or any revenues collected by the state and transfer those to the pension funds because we're not fulfilling our obligation. So, it's, we've been short, I don't even know of a year that we were fully funding pension funds. I mean, maybe 20 years ago, but I think at least since I've been in this position, we've not been fully funding the pension funds. The valuation of funding changed also, I wanna say maybe in 2014 or 2015. So that, what maybe used to be a $600,000 contribution, we were required to do double, just based upon, how all the actuaries now have to evaluate the funds and report as such. It's a serious issue.
So one of the things we're gonna be talking about is the new revenue coming in, once we see the cannabis dispensary
Right.
Revenues come in, that'll be a discussion we'll have to have as to, how much of that do we want to allocate toward
Yeah.
pension, toward pension payments. We've already met with the, fire pension board.
Right.
And I think we left that meeting both feeling comfortable that, we were doing our part, their understanding of the situation that we're in, that they felt comfortable with, the extra payments that we were doing and the consideration of new revenue, being a source to help fund the pensions. I know the police pension just emailed me, also wanting to meet, so we'll be meeting with them in the coming weeks to have that, what I'm guessing is gonna be the same discussion. So we're really trying to let them, give them information to make them comfortable that we're doing our part.
And, each year with tax levy, we are increasing the contribution to pension funds. But I think, as I mentioned, if we were to do 90% funding for both, or, per the actuary, valuation, the 90% minimum funding each tax levy year, it would leave such a shortfall for cash in the general fund. We're at a point where we owe the Roosevelt Hanna TIF over $1 million because we just don't have the cash flow, to pay the bills, to pay payroll. So, we used to borrow from the water fund, quit borrowing from the water fund, now I'm borrowing from the TIF fund. Legal, allowable to do, we have to record that as a balance due, but, it's not sustainable. Besides the tax levy, currently other methods of payment into the pension funds are through state allocations we get on personal property replacement tax. That percentage is set, from like 1970 from corporate taxes. So, they get a percentage of allocations that come from the state. And then, about 2 years ago, we started doing supplemental payments just with every council meeting, just to, try to reduce the, liability, the lack of funding there. And a lot of it also has to do with, the pensions investment and the interest rates, that, some years have been great, some years were really bad, significant losses. I can't speak on the consolidation, I don't really know how that's helped or what that outcome has been as far as the, return on investments, but, we'll be optimistic that will help at least, a larger pool and, stronger investments in a good market. But that can change overnight, And the village, it's the village's obligation for that shortfall.
So, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, the other thing, that we had mentioned, and of course, this would be a council decision, so I'm not necessarily saying we should do this with the places of eating taxes and other sorts of
Yes,
revenue, that
that'll
we
be
should
an
also talk about
Right.
how we can,
allocate
use that
part,
to
you
get-
know, percentage of that, or however we determine what part.
exactly.
And that's, you know, that's helped at least with the fire pension fund feel a little more comfortable in the conversations that we had. We did meet with, police pension, with Moses, so, you know, it's gonna be a similar conversation as to what we had, but, you know, we're making attempts, at least as best we can.
And I will say, this being my first entire budget, you know, I mean, previous to this budget, I was really only involved in the mayor's office's budget. So this being my first time really kind of hands-on with y'all, with, the entire budget, you know, I have to give kudos to the department heads. They are doing more with less. You know, we in a lot of ways asked them to do something that, you know, 10 years ago, they would have never thought of having to do. So, you know, we're gonna continue looking at how we can be more efficient, you know, at the things that we do. You know, we've talked at length about, you know, if there's space to cut certain things, you know, there's really not a lot of things, that we can kind of cut from our budgets without having to cut services. So, we'll continue to look at, you know, how we do things and see if we can provide those services in a different way that are, you know, both cost efficient and personnel efficient. And, you know, we'll continue to kind of do our part to help and, get our budget back up to a healthy place.
If I can reach out to Aldi Corporate and find out what their year one revenues are anticipated, I'm sure it's gonna be pretty close.
Okay, good. But then we will have to, of course, visit, the legislation for when we have to impose our
Right.
others.
Yeah, cause that'll
And
take
next
place
year,
January 1st, 2026 is when it's,
Yeah.
so we'll have to, in 2025, we'll have to work
I
on
don't wanna skip a beat on that.
doing what we need to do
Right.
to put that in place.
Is just picking up on Tish, what you're saying and what others have said here is, I think when we're, looking at the budget and keeping in mind some of these bigger policy considerations, of, you know, what we need to do, to meet some of these, shortfalls, you know, I know, I'm thinking of, you know, these tools and ways that I can contribute, and I know, I appreciate, Commissioner Vogue's, thought process of, you know, how can we think of, and I think all of us have these different ways of looking at, you know, how do the mechanisms and the processes that we look at expenses and look at revenue, and have processes that we can make decisions and understand, how we're being good stewards of the money that we have without putting extra burden on staff, because you are doing so much with so little. So, best practices that we know and suggest, like a certain type of agreement versus another is a suggestion. But I think and I appreciate that thought process, and wanna support that. But and I know things like that help me, but, you know, if that's good in this case, but to me, when I see, things that help me keep track of, funds and help me see the impact of decisions, like, here's where we are, together, working, to, impact policies, at the department level, at the village level, to bring forward, putting aside a reserve for the general fund, or doing X. So, perhaps something we can do as a village is to say, what are things we're gonna do as a village to, you know, like, not quite what we have on the chart here, but sort of say, what things can we do as a village to create a general fund reserve? And then what things can we do to agree that, are manageable for everyone, to, help, what policies or procedures would help to move towards that, that would help us all be on the same page to do that. So, and then, you know, again, so if we're suggesting something that everybody sees that that's a good thing, or, staff could say, well, this would work for us, and we could be as counselors, you know, as commissioners, great, then that'll help us see where the money's coming from. Cause I think, you know, one of the reasons I became a commissioner was I wanted to make sure that we made a dent on, the pensions, you know, and I wanna do what I can to make a difference to that. So I wanna be supportive of ideas that help us get there, wherever they come from. And, you know, I, you know, support efforts on that end and, you know, so, and be supportive of those ideas. And I think whatever we can do, yeah, so I will identify ideas that I can put forward, but, I just wanted to say that, you know, as we're going forward with the budget process.
I would like to, real quick, second a lot of what, Commissioner Mellon Rickhofen said, and, I also wanted to thank, the department heads, like all of you, as I'm looking at you, have been here for a really long time. And know what you're doing and care about this village, and I know that I don't speak just for myself when I say, like, I have a lot of respect for you and the way you manage your departments, and I think that it's really important that we listen a lot to the department heads who have been doing this job for a very long time, and, I just think that's important, and I wanna thank you guys for doing the work you do. And of course, again, Tish and Rachel, thank you for all the hard work you've done on this budgeting process.
I'm very excited about this coming fiscal year. You know, I think that we've got some great things coming up ahead of us. We have some challenges too, but I'm excited to work with the staff that we have. You know, these are great people that are servicing the village of Forest Park here. So that's all I have to say. Is anybody else?
I think this is the most productive budget meeting that I've been a part of, so thank you.
Agreed.
We have
I'll second that.
We have public comment.
So.
All for public comment?
Is there any public comment?
No.
For all of you in attendance, thank you for coming. So I'm very much looking forward to not having a budget meeting for at least another 9 months.
Right.
So, but I do appreciate that you all took the time to go through the last 3 budget meetings with us and hand it back over to the mayor.
Okay, Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Mattson?
Aye.
Commissioner Mellon Rickhofen? Aye. Commissioner Vogt? Aye.